Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year. We're brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things for folks living in San Diego County, whether it's food insecurity, it's Alzheimer's, it's the homeless, art. They are involved in so many of these critical causes. So thrilled to have a return appearance from our friends from Resounding Joy and Mama's Kitchen, joined by Kerri Fox, Executive Director of Resounding Joy. How you doing, Kerri?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Always good to see you. I know you've been a frequent guest on this show for quite a few years. As I recall, and Eva Matthews is the CEO of Mama's Kitchen. How you doing, Eva?
Doing well. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start just quickly, each of you, on the mission of the organization, and then we'll talk about this very cool partnership. We'll start with you, Eva. What's the mission of Mama's Kitchen?
Well, Mama's Kitchen believes that everyone is entitled to the basic necessity of life, which is nutritious food. We started 36 years ago, back at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and our founder recognized in the community a need, to care for individuals who are being marginalized, who didn't have access to everything they needed. And they banded together with other volunteers to bring meals to individuals living with HIV and AIDS who could not cook or shop for themselves. And fast forward 36 years, and our mission has expanded, and we're serving over 900,000 meals per year to individuals living with a host of critical illnesses like HIV, cancer, chronic kidney disease, congestive heart failure, type 2 diabetes. So we've come a long way.
Yeah, and with these meals, they're delivered to the home. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. We're home delivering breakfast, lunch, dinner, healthy snacks, and they're all medically tailored. So that means that they are designed by our registered dietitians alongside our culinary team to make sure that they meet the nutritional needs of each person's medical condition.
Right. So obviously they have to have a medical condition, but they also have to be in some type of socioeconomic level, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. 95% of our clients are living at or below, poverty line,
right.
But we will take clients of any income level because, an income statement doesn't tell you very much when you've just been told that you have a critical illness and you may not be able to earn, right? So we do not exclude anyone from.
Yeah, and then before we pivot over to Kerri and Resounding Joy, how many of the folks are pretty much living by themselves? I mean, we know isolationism is a huge thing these days with a lot of people, not just seniors, but seniors as well.
Yeah, and I can say that we have, over 60% of our clients are living alone. And I know that Kerri's team really could see that in the work that we did in partnership because so many of them are homebound. To have the services that Resounding Joy provided really makes a difference to their, connection, social connection.
Well, in some cases, that may be the only people they'll talk to that day.
That's right.
And I think it surprises people that don't understand how big a deal isolation is in. So really appreciate the recap on the mission. Resounding Joy, how long have you been there now, Kerri?
I've been executive director for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And Resounding Joy is a nonprofit music therapy organization based here in San Diego. We've been around since 2004. And we were founded with the premise that there were people out there for whom music therapy or music engagement would be beneficial, but they wouldn't have access. So as a nonprofit, one of our goals is to provide no cost or low cost music therapy to people of all ages. So we work across the lifespan, providing music therapy, music engagement, music lessons. We work with infants all the way through older adults. And for those who are not familiar, music therapy is a health profession where a board-certified music therapist works with evidence-based interventions or activities to help people achieve physical, emotional, social, cognitive, or just general mental health goals. Anxiety, depression, social isolation.
You know, it's what people have probably known since everyone was walking upright, again, 3,000 years ago, whatever the case may be, that, boy, music is good for me. I'm not a scientist, so I can't tell how it's affecting my endorphins and all that. But there's the science behind it, and we all know that. And, you know, I think what Resounding Joy has brought to the folks in this, and you guys know this, it's in your wheelhouse, are those types of things, and like the science between, you know, medically prepared, you know, meals. We're chatting with Eva Matthews, CEO of Mama's Kitchen, and Kerri Fox, Executive Director of Resounding Joy. So I'll start with you on this one, Eva. When did you guys start to collaborate, and why?
We were connected through a mutual colleague, and initially we thought, well, how are we gonna partner? What kind of program are we gonna put together? And we started thinking about it, and you know, it really came together that our clients, you know, we thought would benefit from in-home music therapy, knowing about that social connection. And we were so fortunate, you know, Kerri spearheaded a grant application to the Prebys Foundation, and that is where it all started. I don't know, Kerri, maybe you want to say more about that.
Yeah, I think what we realized is that we're working with a lot of the same people, just approaching, benefiting them in different ways, right? They're nourishing their bodies, and we were helping nourish and enhance their mental health. And again, this grant for Prebys is called Healing Through the Arts. And it was really, we felt like it was really designed for what we were hoping to do. And we created a pilot program. And it's been about 1.5 years now. We're in year 2 of the grant. They did renew it. And we're just seeing phenomenal results with the individuals we're working with.
So how will you measure that? I know we can measure what Mama's Kitchen does to the folks that need this medically prepared, you know, meals. Obviously, you test them, and here's what's going on, and either you're maintaining a certain level or getting better in certain areas. But from a music therapy aspect of it, is there some type of data that says, besides the fact I feel good, there's nothing wrong with the qualitative data on this aspect of it. So how do you measure that?
We did both a pre and post survey, and we based the questions on the Flanagan Quality of Life, which really talks about a lot of 5 aspects of well-being. So we asked questions before they started, and then we followed up with questions after. And then throughout, our therapist made a lot of observations, and we talked to people throughout, and then we do have pages and pages of testimonials. But I'm going to turn to Eva. Her team did a lot of the data analysis, and she's got some really good numbers to share.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, you know, when all was said and done, you know, we had, through our pilot program, served 40 individuals. And so, as Kerri said, we did both, you know, quantitative and qualitative, so closed-ended, numeric kinds of data collection, and sort of the open-ended style. And, you know, what we found is when we were asking them some of these closed questions, you know, around satisfaction, for example, you know, across all of the measures that we had on satisfaction, we were at 4.8 out of 5. Clients absolutely loved the program. 89% of them expressed that they They had improved emotional well-being after the sessions. 95% reported an increase in their confidence. And, for me, looking at some of the open-ended responses, I was moved, and it really stood out to me that for many, their experience with the music therapy gave them a connection to other times in life. So they talked about youth. They talked about better connection with their family members. So we had 17 caregivers in addition to the 40 participants. And so through that, people were able to make better connections, even within their own household, as well as with people, outside their home. So they were making new social connections. I have one example of one of the clients who had said, no, my neighbors don't like to bother with me. I don't have too many friends, but one of my neighbors saw me walk out with the music therapist and asked me about it. And so now we're getting together. So it's this kind of change that I think is lasting. So we would love to be able to follow up with folks later to learn more about what, some of these effects in terms of social connection might be durable over time.
So will the music therapist come into the household and with an instrument, with recordings, with a little bit of both? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I realized describing what they did would be helpful. Every participant got an 8-week session.
Okay.
We gave them a ukulele as a gift. But typically what happened with the music therapist would get to know the participant, and some people wanted to sing, and so maybe songs of the day. If they were older, we'd do some songs that were reminiscent. Some of them, our therapist would play the guitar and they would sing for them. A music therapy session could include breathing, some relaxing exercises. So typically they came to the first session and tried to gauge. We had some participants who wanted to work on vocals, and so we gave them some vocal instruction. But a lot of it was very social. As Eva was saying, it was somebody who was there to listen to them, to work with them, and to use music to heal in whatever fashion that took.
Right. Is each session like an hour, or how long is each?
Yeah, we did 1 hour sessions.
So once a week then?
Once a week,
For 8
1 hour
weeks.
session for 8 weeks.
Right.
And we had so many people that wanted to continue, and they were really upset that it was only 8 weeks.
Right, but could they continue it this way? So now I'm making up stuff as if I'm knowing what I'm talking about, which obviously I'm not. So the therapist comes in and you find out about the person, and they say, I love music in the 50s and all that, so they're doing Benny Goodman or whatever the case may be. So they're done with their 8 weeks. Will they be able to leave them something? Hey, you know what? You should be playing this album, whatever. Or you can go on YouTube if they know how to do YouTube. And now just continue your own musical therapy. Do they do some of that at all?
Yeah, that's a really big part of any music therapy that we do, is making sure that people can use music on their own to help heal themselves if they're down. Actually, one of the therapists told me that he spent the first half hour of one of the sessions setting up Spotify and making sure, because it was an older adult, it was not as digitally savvy, and helping set up so that he could do that on his own. We've also, there have been some people for whom we had a guitar donated, and we were able to give them a guitar and work with guitar lessons. We did the same with keyboards. And we did even mention the families and caregivers. And with some, we were doing multi-generational therapy, where there was a grandmother and a daughter and some grandchildren. And some of them have done songwriting, where they were expressing their emotions, things that were hard to say but were easier to put into a song. And we have examples of a lot of this. It's really just fabulous.
Right. When we come back from break, I want to talk more about this. If you worked with other groups, think about which other groups you work with, whether it's with guitars and ukes in the classroom or via musica and all these other wonderful aspects of it all. We always save some time at end of the Spotlight show on what our listeners can do to support your efforts. Can they donate? Can they volunteer? Can they play music? Can they do whatever the case may be? When we return with Kerri Fox, Executive Director of Resounding Joy, joined by her colleague Eva Matthews, CEO of Mama's Kitchen. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We'll be right back after this short break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. We're chatting with our friends from Resounding Joy and Mama's Kitchen. Kerri Fox, Executive Director of Resounding Joy, and Eva Matthews, CEO of Mama's Kitchen. Our Spotlight on the Community Show is the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by the fine folks of Mission Fed Credit Union for 60-plus years, just doing great things in the community. So we're talking about the partnership, which makes all the sense in the world. There's no question about it. And the data behind it certainly is very encouraging. And Preface Foundation, shout out to them for continuing the grant. They do such wonderful things all throughout our region, to say the least, on this. So Eva, you said you started with a cohort of 40, is that correct? And plus yes. 17 caregivers? Mm-hmm. Okay, so was the caregiver with the person when they were doing this?
I believe most of the time they were in the same space as their as the client. Yes.
Right. So I always like to give extra work to people that come in here and go, Drew, I'm busy enough as it is. What are you talking about? Ever thought about maybe gathering those 40 people and they can put together a concert or something like that?
So this is so interesting that you bring that up, because that would have been the ideal scenario.
Right.
Our clients, many of them are medically vulnerable and aren't able to be in those spaces very easily. Right. So what we did over the course of the project was to get recordings. So whenever it was possible to have a recording from different clients, we were able to gather that, and the hope is really to put together a compilation of those things and to be able to highlight them in that way. But not everybody feels as comfortable in front of the microphone as others. So we respect that, and we just invited those who really felt moved to do so.
No, that's great, and I think as we talked about before, I mean, obviously the science behind music therapy is a real thing, to say the least on this. Have you found anything that just jumps out at you? Boy, I didn't realize that this would be part of the results. Okay, that these people they reacted this way in a very positive way, or pretty much that's what you expected was going to happen.
There are a couple of things. First, because they are homebound and social isolation was one of the factors, what we're finding is the initial therapy almost starts with the call from our scheduler to set them up. We're finding that just the administrative piece of it, they're spending a lot of time on the phone talking, and they really appreciate that somebody is spending time with them. So that was one thing we didn't anticipate, was that was going to be a big part of it. And the second, and I've heard this from just about everyone on our staff, musicians and music therapists have worked on Mama's Kitchen. It's one of their favorite partnerships that we have. They've said that they've noticed that over time, people attend to their appearance a little bit more, because they're appreciating having somebody come into their home like they've got a guest coming in. And it's the benefit, I think, is a little more self-care, a little more awareness of how they're presenting themselves, and they're enjoying that piece of it. And I think that's carrying on as well. So people that may have been very, very lonely, and maybe the only visitor was the person delivering the food once a week, now they've got a musician or a music therapist coming in. So I didn't anticipate either of those. I knew about the music therapy in general, but those sort of ancillary aspects were really interesting.
So how many of the folks, obviously it's a relatively small cohort of 40, and 17 caregivers and all this aspect of it, but even look at your bigger audience and so forth, how many of them are suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, or are any of them?
We don't gather all of their medical history. Right. We're mostly focused on those conditions that would make them eligible for medically tailored meals. Right. But it really kind of runs the gamut, as you would expect for those clients who are older adults, and having the social connection, whether it's some of our volunteers and some of our drivers have been with us for many years. We have one volunteer who's been doing the same route for 25 years. And so when you have those kinds of relationships, there's a kind of connection that they can tell when something is even a bit off. And we will get some feedback from the drivers to let us know, hey, can you reach out to their family member and just let them know to check in. So I think of it as, we're not just providing nutrition to our clients, but we're providing that connection, that touchstone when people might need it most.
Right, and and maybe we've talked about this before, Kerri. I can't remember. Alzheimer's Association of Imperial and San Diego County is a frequent guest on our Spotlight show. Is music therapy used with that organization quite a bit, and with the folks that you go and deal with?
Definitely. We work a lot with older adults. We are in several senior facilities throughout San Diego County.
Oasis and groups like that.
Yeah, and Wesley Palms and various senior living, and sometimes we're with the general population, and sometimes we're in memory care, and we're doing groups, and once in a while we'll do some individuals, but a lot of times the group is really good for them from a social, collaborative communication, bringing them out. We also have partnered with AARP and Alzheimer's, and we've done multiple series. We did it's Music in the Brain, and we're actually going to be doing them in the Grossmont Healthcare District this summer, where it's 3 weeks in a row, and they bring together about 20 people through the Alzheimer's Foundation, and then we will talk about music in the brain. We'll use music. Our therapists will work through a lot of activities with them. So that is definitely an audience, because music has the ability to activate parts of the brain for memory and communication. And a lot of times people will sing along, and they may not be as verbal on a day-to-day basis or talk, and we'll hear that from caregivers and others, like, wow, they barely say anything, but when you guys are here, you're helping them, bring out aspects of them that they've sort of forgotten. So,
well, we all know about music just unlocks those memories. You hear a song, and then they put me right back in 1960s or 70s or wherever you were in that aspect of it. And of course, once it unlocks that, then the people actually react to it, and they're stimulating the brain on all the things that you folks know. So we're on this. I'll start with you on this, Eva, and then pivot over to Kerri. What are some of the challenges that you folks face, and how can our listeners support those challenges with solutions?
Well, I think nonprofits right now are facing a lot of challenges, but in our space for Mama's Kitchen, we really see as an upcoming threat are things like cuts to SNAP and the new policy requirements for both SNAP and Medi-Cal, because when people lose their access to food and health care, they're deferring or they're delaying their care. And when they come to us, they need help in a more urgent fashion. And we would love to be there as early as possible in someone's health journey when they need medically tailored meals, because it really does help to stabilize their condition. 6 months of meals costs the same as one night in a San Diego hospital. So when we think about it that way, having those meals prevents the hospital readmission, and we really want to be able to help people when they need it most. So that's where we see challenge, and we're a nonprofit. We've always included a volunteer model. So when I think about how people can support Mama's Kitchen, I really want to encourage folks to go to mamaskitchen.org, click on that volunteer button, and learn more, because it doesn't really matter what your skill set is. We've got opportunities that will fit your interests. Maybe you really love being around others and you want to help bag in an assembly line, or you enjoy working around food and want to be in the kitchen, or driving to deliver to someone's home. It's all really meaningful work. And for those who can't volunteer or not inclined, going to mamaskitchen.org and make a donation, whether it's one time or recurring, all of this helps us meet our mission and get meals to people's homes.
Yeah, and I bet that number of 900,000 is not going down.
It's not. It's not going down, and I think as I said, the changes that we see afoot in the future really are going to necessitate more of our philanthropic dollars going toward medically tailored meals than some of our other funding sources, because those will in some ways dwindle. So we want to make sure that we're sort of attacking this on all fronts, as it were, and making sure that we're there meeting our mission. We have never turned away an eligible client, and we do not have a waiting list. So we want to keep that record going.
Yeah, what's the website? How do they get a hold of you?
mamaskitchen.org is where to go. It is very simple, and click on donate or volunteer and join us.
No, that sounds great. Kerri, what can our folks do? Volunteer, obviously. Are you looking for new musicians that want to do these things, or that is always a thing you'd like to do?
Yeah, so interesting. Music therapy is, it's vitally important, but it's not a basic need like food or shelter, and we acknowledge that. But we complement so many other things that are happening. If somebody's going through talk therapy or physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, or if you have a child with autism, or an older adult with Alzheimer's, or a veteran working through PTSD. So part of the challenge, I think, for us is people understanding what music therapy is, and how beneficial it can be and how complementary it can be. Another challenge is that we are a nonprofit. There are for-profit music therapy organizations, but as a nonprofit, one of our goals is to provide music therapy to people who cannot afford it. And so, the challenge there is making sure that we either have donations or grants, or people come to our fundraisers, or we have volunteers. We do take instrument donations. That is something, and if we can use them, we use them. If not, we sell them, and those are donations to the organization. But so I would say, awareness of music therapy, understanding how beneficial it can be, and just we've got, so many stories of how it really did change somebody's trajectory. We always need music therapists. There are only about 100 universities nationwide offering music therapy right now. So one of my goals is really, we're hoping that we can get San Diego State or one of the local universities to have a program, because there are so many musicians in San Diego and kids who would find that to be a viable career.
No question. Well, what's the website?
So we are resoundingjoyinc.org.
Okay. And I think with both of those organizations, plenty of opportunities to go ahead and volunteer, to donate, and so forth. What I'd love to do is have you both come in, either collectively or individually, bring in somebody who has benefited from the music therapy. Not trying to break any HIPAA laws with Mama's Kitchen and all that, but families that have benefited from this. We always love to have the end user come in. Kerri, it's always good seeing you with the great work you do, and Eva, what a pleasure. Mama's Kitchen has been the top of their game for years, and this partnership is just spectacular. What I love about it is 1 + 1 does equal about $2 billion in this case. And if we have more nonprofits, so when it fits, that do these things, we know it's just going to accelerate working with the clients. So thank you so much. Kerri Fox, Executive Director of Resounding Joy. Eva Matthews, CEO of Mama's Kitchen. I'm Drew Schlosberg with Cloudcast Media. We'll listen to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. And to our audience, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.